Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey. Hope everybody's doing good. It's Karl Bryan coming at you. I'm here today, sans road dog. Poor bugger, his mom is in the hospital. So if you'd like to send some thoughts and prayers towards our boy Road Dog, he would appreciate it. Certainly his mother. She's going to be okay, by the way, but pretty serious thing, and blood transfusion, etc. So we wish Road Dog's mother well, but here we are. He sent me through an email, and I am ready to rock. All right, so he wants us to start off with Zen thought. Here's what I got for you. 3 monster decisions you'll make in your life are what you do, who you spend time with, and where you live. And if you were to find yourself in a place in life where, let's call it, a little bit frustrated, you're looking for a little bit of needle moving, you're looking for like a hack, I will tell you that if you go to those 3 things, what you do, that could be a career change or other, but what are you up to? Who you spend time with, adjust that. You know the drill. You're a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Very, very true. And data backs that up. It's not opinion. Data backs that up. And where you live. That's another. That environment is an absolute hack on steroids. If you are to be in a place of life where you're not earning as much as you'd like, at a level of happiness, or your relationship is feeling a little bit stale, or maybe going in the wrong direction, etc., changing where you live could be absolutely needle moving. So there you go. But those are 3 monster life decisions. Tell you also, I just read this morning, Paul Di'Anno, I believe is the way you pronounce his last name, Di'Anno. Anyways, who's that? Iron Maiden lead singer. Probably don't know that, but back in the day, I was a little more into Duran Duran and Madonna, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But anyways, Iron Maiden, some decent hits and some good rock songs that you might enjoy, and I do. My wife prefers them far more than I do, by the way. I always tease her. But anyway, so he passed away. Here's the bad news. Triple bad news. He passed away broke and alone in social housing. The last time, I believe it was in Australia, his last time on stage, and it was described as the world's slowest heavy metal car crash. He was in a wheelchair for the last 5 years of his life. Think about it, his old bandmates still play in full houses and make, full houses as in, full, they fill up bars and, different venues and make no doubt hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars off royalties. And they're touring, not to mention the feel good of getting up in front of a crowd that will make anybody feel younger and more alive, etc. And just imagine the difference in those 2 situations, right? Like, he's in government housing, broke, dying alone, the lead singer of Iron Maiden, right? And 2 things, and you probably know what led to that, but he says this in an interview: drugs and alcohol. Stay away from them. But I'll just tell you this, 2 things that are very uncommon to come together, and that is old and that is rich. So again, when you meet somebody who is old and rich, I dare say you use the old adage of 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen, over speak as much as you can. That person has something to say, and it's probably pretty good. So old and rich, but anyway, so may he rest in peace. But I read that, it just made me think of, it's like, you got to manage downside more than you have to get excited about your upside. That's Charlie Munger 101. Manage your downside. Look at the downside, weigh the downside. What did I just say? Drugs and alcohol are what he will tell you led to that dynamic where his bandmates are up on stages in front of full houses and making millions of dollars to this day. And he's broken alone and dying broken alone, right? Like manage the downside. Drugs and alcohol, generally, there's a lot of downside. I think, having a couple social drinks is fine. Drinking too much, leading to something that rhymes with addiction. The downside, it's a slippery slope. Anyway, so managing, in fact, my mentor, a mentor of mine who follow an incredible level, Keith Cunningham, he says there's three things. What's the upside? When you're making a big decision, whether business, life, you ask yourself three questions. Major power in questions, ladies and gentlemen. Number one is, what's the upside? Number two is, what's the downside? Number three is, can you live with the downside? Can you live with the downside? So think things through. Think second, third, fourth order consequences. You got to be able to stop and think. You got to be thinking at 10,000 feet in order to answer all that correctly, I believe, as opposed to being stuck in the clouds. Anyways, yeah. So just make good decisions. Actually, that reminds me of there's a quote by Naval Ravikant that again is a brilliant thinker. I'm going to put him I think one day he'll kind of be looked back as maybe a bit of a Charlie Munger type. And he says, and again, I'm going to make a meal of this, but the premise of what he says is that all personal development is prioritizing long-term over short-term. The brilliance of that, in my opinion, is literally gobsmacking. All personal development is prioritizing your long-term versus your short-term. The long-term results over the short-term results. Just think of, there's chocolate and broccoli. Personal development would say, grab the broccoli. What do people do? They grab the chocolate, right? Going to the gym, not going to the gym. Short-term, I'd rather do this, I'd rather do that. I got this commitment. I've got to, got to go here, got to go there, got to get this done. But long-term, which one would be the better of the two? We all know, right? Going up, if you're single, going up and speaking to that particular individual, I could get turned down. I could get my feelings hurt. I could feel, you know what I mean? I could feel a little bit of lameness here if I don't get the right result. But what if you do? Organizing long-term over short-term. So anyway, I thought that was cool. Oh, the other thing, Road Dog, he wanted me to, okay, so he said, go to your emails and pull a joke. So I don't have the joke, but anyway, so I wrote earlier, a week ago from now, but I wrote that my 13-year-old nephew, he dumped his girlfriend and he told me that he's attempting to get his hoodie back. He's in for one hell of a life lesson. There you go. I don't think that landed the way that I was planning, but he's 13 and he's trying to get his hoodie back from the girlfriend that he just dumped. Look out, kid. Look out. Anyway, Road Dog. What's Road Dog going to say when he listens to that? Okay, so Carl, a few questions from emails here that we've never gotten to. Short answers only, please. So there you go. Question number one listed after that is, what are the rules of business? Okay. Rules of business. Okay, actually, before I tell you those, and I know what he's talking about here. Number one is Warren Buffett's got 2 rules of investing. My question for you is, what are they? No doubt you should know. Do you know? Hopefully, if you don't, you should know. And I'm about to give them to you. And if you don't know, you got to commit them to memory. And if you do know, my question is, are you following? Okay. Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, see rule number 1. That sounds a little bit like a throwaway line, right, from Warren Buffett, but let me tell you, that is anything but a throwaway line. Very legitimate. When you understand the downside, right, understand managing downside is significantly more important than getting excited about the upside. That's what he's talking about there. And it very legitimately, these are guiding principles of Warren Buffett and the late great Charlie Munger and their investment. So again, those are not throwaway rules. Those are not a throwaway line. There is legitimate rules of investing. Okay, so I have got 2 rules of business, and very simply, there are 2 rules and only 2 rules that I believe you need to follow, your clients need to follow. Amazon follows, Ford, Tesla, Elon Musk with his business ventures. Number 1, you got to get clients. Rule number 2, you got to keep clients. That's it. Okay. And then magically what happens is, as let's say that you are a lead generation play and you are going to help people get clients. What your business needs to evolve into is keeping clients. It's like this software. I built profit acceleration software. Originally, it was literally a tool to get high-end coaching clients. Okay, well, what happened is that our coaches would go out and they would get clients and they'd sign them, they were signing them for $500 a month, and they would start signing them for $2,000 a month, and then they'd start signing them for $5,000 a month. And we've got plenty of clients that, they close $100,000 coaching clients using our software, right? Well, but what do you think, what does that need to evolve into? And that's rule number 2 of keeping clients. That's why, again, if you look at our software today, it's very much group coaching software and a coaching portal where you manage coaching relationships and customize your Q&A, house all of your, the answers that they come up with. It's got a student portal, but it very much evolved into keep clients. So you've got 2 rules of business. Now, rule number 1, get clients. Rule number 2, keep clients. And that also is an evolution. So you are going to help your clients, the chiropractor, get clients. Right? Well, you are going to need to evolve into helping your chiropractor keep the clients, right? So that will happen for you. That has happened for us, and that's happened for many very, very, very successful coaches. So I also said, look, and then I've created, so I've got 3, you guys have heard this if you've followed the podcast, but I've kind of changed it up recently with the rules. Okay, so then rules of coaching. Okay, so there's 2 rules of investing. There are 2 rules of business. And then here's my question for you. Are there only 2 rules of coaching? And if you can't, if you don't know the 2 rules of coaching, I would press you to say, what do you think they'd be? And the way that you'd get there is you'd be taking away, you'd be simplifying, right? How do you know? You know what I mean? Like if you're going to, the famous story of the big gold Buddha, right? And it had mud all over it, and they chipped away everything that wasn't Buddha. Right? So again, you got to chip away, chip away, chip away, chip away. What are the 2 rules of coaching? And let's face it, coaching can be pretty complex. Is that possible? I believe that it is. And guess what those 2 rules are? Rule number 1, where are you? Going to discover where your client is. Little red arrow, you are here. But rule number 1, establish where are you? They've never, your client, I don't need to meet the chiropractor, the dentist, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, never taken the time to do that. Okay, so then what's rule number 2? Where do you want to go? And then if you really think about it, coaching is nothing more and nothing less than the intersection of getting from rule number 1 to rule number 2. Rule number 1, establish where you're at. Rule number 2, establish where you want to go. And that goes for you, that goes for me, and that goes for your coaching client, that goes for Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, etc. He wants to colonize, Elon Musk, the alien just trying to get home. He wants to colonize Mars. He's very, very clear on where he wants to go, right? And again, if you understand his business dealings and the things that he's building and the rockets that he's sending into outer space and the satellites that he's setting up, a lot of that is lending itself to his broader goal that he is very open and public about, and that is to colonize Mars. Anywho, so there you go. That's what I'm going to say to that. I'd also say this. Here's something that I've just been thinking about lately. Maybe this falls under Zen, maybe not. But look, financial literacy. So my dad, my dad's 82 years old. He can hardly turn on a computer. He does use a computer. He does a little bit of gambling online. He plays, Poker Stars and this sort of thing. But he battles mightily. And what he'll refer to him like he's technology illiterate. Right, so him traveling to me, like I've got to go see him because him traveling is a bit of an exercise because him getting, from he lives in, I retired him in Mexico, and for him getting from Mexico to me is a hell of a jaunt. And it's just something he's not interested in undertaking because, again, technology's got him, right? Well, I'm guessing you're not technology illiterate, but my question is, are you financially literate? And I'm going to tell you that 80% of North America is financially illiterate, right? I find that to be scary. These are not, I don't look, am I accurate exactly with my numbers? I did read those somewhere, don't know where. I do believe them to be pretty accurate. Might be a little bit on the harsh side, but again, but who cares about me? Who cares about them? What about you? Are you financially literate? And if you're honest, remember 2 rules. Where are you? Where do you want to go? I think you should have a goal of becoming financially literate. And that can be a little bit humbling. That could be a step backwards to take multiple forwards. But if you find yourself to be falling into the category where you look, I cannot read financial statements. No, I am not, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not overly, budgeting is not something that A, I'm doing, or B, I'm understanding of. Look, I don't know that there's a more needle moving activity that you can undertake. I mean, of course, I try to litter a lot of this stuff into the podcast, right? Could do more, surely could do less, but that's something that I would challenge you. If you think of yourself and I go, look, an individual who is financially illiterate is at a tremendous disadvantage. Where do you rank yours? Just rank yourself out of 10, 10 being incredibly financially literate, and then 1 being, oh my gosh, I got a lot of room to, where do you put yourself, right? Like 1 being very poor, 10 being awesome, where do you end up? And remember the goal, old and rich, very, very uncommon. I'm going to tell you that, you can get lucky and make it. You can't get lucky and keep it, right? You can get lucky and make it. You can't get lucky and keep it. I would not, it's one thing, in your 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe your 60s to be working hard. I don't think that you want to be working. I don't think you want to have, in your 70s, you might want to work hard, but I would like to think you'd want it to be your decision, not the decision of, your livelihood, which, I wouldn't want to be working in my 70s for my livelihood, for my, putting a roof over my head and paying my, my mortgage, my rent, and feeding myself. I would want all of those things to be well and truly looked after from my investments from my younger years. If you're not with that trajectory, you don't even, there's a chance that I just said that and you don't even know what that looks like. You don't have that plan. I am going to tell you to get to work and that you fall into that 80% and you should deal with that. So there you go. Rules of business. I don't know how I got into that, but rules of business. So there's 2 rules of investing, 2 rules of business, and I have 2 rules of coaching that'll really, really simplify everything and give you that North Star, make it really easier, make it a lot easier for you to basically, understand the path to where you want to go. Okay, your take on social media. Oh, there you go. Wouldn't have expected that one, but there you go. Enragement equals engagement. That's a bad thing. Be very cautious with that. In other words, if you go to your algorithm that is untrained, it is going to put a bunch of crap and, political type stuff in front of you that you may or may not want to be looking at. I'm going to dare say not look at. I'll tell you this about social media. I'll tell you, since Facebook took off, let's say, right? Don't know when that, I'm going to call that 15 years ago. I don't even know, but 15 years ago, we've consistently replaced things that work with things that look and sound good, right? Just think virtue signaling here, right? Reason that happens is, I think, like social media is just completely disconnected, completely separated from the real world, right? Like things that work on social media, things that sound good often don't work in, practical sense. You ever had like a really, really good idea at like 11 o'clock at night, and when you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh my God, that was pretty stupid, right? Especially after a couple beers, by the way. But you know what I mean? Like, so the social media is separated from the real world. And you got to make sure that you're using social media and you don't have social media using you. Remember, when Facebook is free, and think about, you could load 1,000 pictures onto Facebook. You can have, 5,000 friends. You can communicate all day. You can look at it all day. You can go back. You can turn it off. You can turn it back on. You can, you know what I mean? Have it on your phone, take it off your phone, and at the click of a couple buttons, have it back on your phone. and you don't pay a cent for it. Okay, let me tell you, that means that you are the product, I am the product, we are the product of Facebook, right? Our eyeballs. You got to make sure that you're using you're using Facebook, you're using social media, and it's not using you, right? So if you're good at it, you got to make sure that you've got a positive experience on social media, not a negative one. Let's put it that way. Not to mention though, if you're good at it, and frankly, I am not. It's just not something that I'm really interested in. And I don't want to live my life staring at Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and God knows what else. It's just not what I want. And yes, pay other people to do it, to do. And we advertise, I speak to you. We have advertisements running on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn right now. But that doesn't, again, that's not how I want to live my life. And that is not, you know what I mean? You may love Facebook and Instagram, want to spend enormous amount of time on it. You might not. But I will tell you, it's somebody that can use social media, and there's some guys that are pretty good at it. I said last week, though, be careful with that, right? Because it's the people who put themselves up for election in politics that you probably don't want to have elected to politics, right? The same way that the guy who is going to put his hand up to say, I want to become a police officer, I want to be a cop, I want to carry around a gun, it might not be the person that we necessarily want to carry around a gun. And there's some unbelievable folks in the police force. There's some also untoward people in the police force, like that's a 101. But I would tell you that the people that you want to be elected are the people that frankly don't want it. The person who said I would never go for election, I would never want to be elected, I would never want to be in politics, generally speaking, are the types of people you'd much prefer that personality type in politics than the ones that are attracted to it. What did I just say? Social media, the people that are really, really good at social media, as a general, it's going to be a narcissistic personality. No doubt, that's not a surprise to you, right? Well, is that the person that you want to be listening to on social media? I would ask. So, and I'll just tell you that also, like we talked about okay, influencers on social media, don't listen to what I say. Have a look at the facts, have a look at the data. And let me tell you, you see influencers, and let me tell you, you're going to see a lot of depression. You're going to see a lot of mood swing roller coaster typed, emotional roller coaster typed individuals. Does that make any sense? And by the way, you're going to see attempted and successful suicides littered throughout people who spend an enormous amount of time earning a living through social media. Translation, be careful. Kids, your kids, your grandkids, be careful. So I don't know. I think I'm doing a pretty bad job. I don't think that's what he was looking for. But anyway, so be a little bit careful with that one. I'll also tell you that standing against will give you greater impact than standing for, right? So like I'll go to social media if I were going to spend time on there, and I post every once in a while, like I put stuff up there for sure. Pretending like I'm an expert at it would be absolutely not. But I will tell you this, standing against. So when I go there and I say, look, multiple streams of income are for idiots, as opposed to, oh my gosh, multiple streams of income are so amazing. Look, my take on it, and feel free to have your own, but introduce me to somebody who preaches multiple streams of income, has multiple streams of income. I'll probably introduce you to somebody who's got multiple streams of very lame income. So as a frame, as a rule, you got to get one company, one stream of income to $5 million, 400 grand a month before you go off on a tangent and start doing other forms of income. That's my opinion. Feel free to have your own, but I will tell you that multiple streams of income, generally speaking, and have a look at what others are, have a look at the hard facts, not the loud guy on gal on Facebook, by the way. See how it's working out. Generally speaking, get one rocking and crushing it. Take all your eggs and put them in one basket and then watch the basket. I think that that's a significantly better but less sexy framework than multiple streams of income. Now, multiple streams of income get lots of, likes and that sort of stuff. But I think that if you stand against it in a credible way and it can explain yourself properly, that the standing against would get you significant. It'll get you higher levels of engagement. That's what I'm going to say. So what are the things that you're stand against as opposed to stand for, right? Like singing Kumbaya as a coach, that's okay. But What are some things that you believe are wrong in a value laden way for your prospects? That might be a good idea. Okay, so social, I don't know, I'm going to move on from that. I don't think I did a very good job of, social media. I'd like just be careful with it. It can be absolutely crushing for the right individual, but it's there's, hey, what's the upside? What's the downside? Can you live with the downside, right? When people are committing suicide and you can see it right there in front of you, I'll let you decide if you can live with the downside. You might be significantly more mentally stable than those individuals, but I don't know. Leave that there. Carl, you wrote an email back about Back to the Future and being in 1985, product versus distribution. A few people have mentioned it. Expand on it, please. Okay, there you go. Okay, product versus distribution. It looked a little bit like this. When you buy something worth $100, let's call it, a hat, a pair of pants, a wallet, a purse, a bicycle, a skateboard, whatever, and you have to put it in the customer's hands. There's two components and only two components to it. There is product, so we're going to call that the skateboard, and then there's distribution, and that's getting the skateboard underneath the 12-year-old's feet, right? Follow? There's product and then there's distribution. If you went to 1985, that $100 for the skateboard will be broken up. 1985, it's like $50 product, $50 distribution, right? That same $100 skateboard today is totally different. It's like, I don't know about these exact numbers, and depending on, like a wallet might be a little bit different from a skateboard, which might be a little bit different from a bicycle, which might be a little bit different from, a consumer good. So, but you got $11 product and $89 distribution. Okay, translate, they call that a pair of pants might be a good example for you to get your head around. What most people do is they want to send it to China. Why? They want to produce it at a lower cost. But think about what I just said. It's $11 product and it's $89 distribution, right? So the common mistake is spending an insane amount of energy, the same amount of resources, finding a way to get the product for less and then like sending it to China as an example, right? So eliminate, you got $11, you're going to turn that into 10. A way better idea, I think, would be to go to $89 of distribution and shaving a few dollars off of that, right? Like, what I said in the message, but it was like getting the jeans packaged, getting them into the box, and then getting them to the shipping dock, right? From the shipping dock to the back of the truck, from the back of the truck to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the retailer's back storage, from the retailer's back storage to the shelves, from the shelves to the end consumer's closet, right? So the client that you're dealing with is probably not thinking along these lines. Like they're thinking product instinctively, and when you break it down, that might be a bad mistake. Like at the end of the day, social media we were just talking about, that is distribution of your message, right? That here's the saying: the internet is the middleman. So Amazon is Amazon because they were able to take the middleman out, the wholesaler, and basically just go direct to consumer, right? So what they did is they totally concentrated on distribution, and that's where the needle moving was. And yeah, they ship stuff off, no doubt, to China and save a few extra pennies that way. But let me tell you, Amazon went to distribution. He didn't go to product to come up with Amazon. Uber at the end of the day, it's the distribution of the taxi, it's the distribution of the car. That's where they saved all of the money. So anyway, yeah, moral of the story, $11 product, $89 distribution. Significantly better idea when you're working with your clients, when you're thinking, for your own coaching services, to be thinking distribution over finding a way to get it a little bit cheaper. So that's what I said about that. Let's get another message here, another question. Should you build two businesses at once? There we go. That might fall under multiple streams of income a little bit. I'll just tell you this, there's a saying, the second business eats the first, right? So the answer would be no. two businesses at once, put all your eggs in one basket, and then watch the basket. And then again, here's the question: the frame is what? $5 million. Do you have one business to 400 grand a month, $5 million a year as a run rate? And then, by the way, if the answer to that was yes, the second question, you could probably predict it if you listen to the podcast regularly, but that's your margins. You know, that sounds great. You made $5 million, you're doing 400 grand a month. What are your margins on the 400? Are they like 40 grand or are they 180 grand, right? As in exciting or not exciting? Well, if you don't have margins that would impress you, impress your coaching client, impress the accountant, I would be going to margin long before I would be going to the second business. So if you did have a frame, it's the second business needs to feed the first, right? So again, instead of second business eating the first, think time, money, resources, bandwidth, owner's energy, your focus. You need the second business to feed the first. Like I just read this morning, I sent it to a buddy of mine that EXP Realty just bought a lead generation play. It's basically like a company that does like custom lead generation for realtors. So basically EXP, which is a MLM realtor play, they bought a lead generation play, right? So if you know what I mean, there's a lot of, it makes a lot of sense. Well, how would you get there? Here's what Bezos would say if we were interviewing him right now. He would look at your P&L and then he would go to your highest expenses on your P&L. And then like his was web services, by the way. He was spending an insane amount of money, hosting all this stuff. So what did he do? He started AWS, which AWS, if you don't know, is like a thriving, insanely high margins and an unbelievable company. How did he come up with the idea? Where did it come from? Like Amazon became the biggest client of AWS instantly, right? So your client wants to start a second company. First of all, are they at least at 400 grand with 20% net margins as a frame? And then hopefully even higher than that potentially. And then when we go to the P&L, where's all the expense? And then is there provision to create a business around that expense, right? As an example, lead generation, in the instance of EXP, who houses realtors, no doubt, if you know anything about real estate, there's a huge amount of money spent on what? And that would be advertising. So they basically, they bought an advertising play for their realtors, and that's a huge expense, not only for them, but for each of their clients. So then their realtors are going to become a client of that business. Hopefully you can just go, that is a 1 + 1 = 3 dynamic. Anyway, so, but then by the way, that might roll up. If you don't understand what roll-ups are, what happens, let's say you have a company that's valued at $10 million for the sake of the argument. Let's say that's EXP, which is valued at one hell of a lot more than that, but just for the sake of the argument, it's a $10 million play. And then let's assume the lead generation play is $1 million valuation. Well, when they roll up the one company into the other, if one's valued at 10 and the other one's valued at 1, and then the $10 million company buys it, you get a significant jump in valuation from the $1 million company because it was rolled up into the higher level, right? So, and the bigger the company, like the higher the revenues, the rarer it is, right? Well, would you want to buy a rare company or would you want to buy a dime a dozen one? Well, companies that are, companies that are doing higher levels of revenues, when you value a company, there's 4 things. There is sustainability, predictability, growth opportunities, and then threats. And then there's some scale in there that I won't bore you with right now. But no doubt you could see if a company's been around longer and has higher revenues for a longer period of time, it's going to be more sustainable, most likely more predictable. There's probably going to be some other growth opportunities that could be undertaken straight away, and the threats aren't quite going to be there because you've got something that's kind of stood the test of time. I've done a better job of explaining that, but the nuts and bolts of it is that, look, should you start a second company? The answer is probably not. 95% of the time. But if you do have a client that's doing well, remember, acquisition over starting would be a framework that most don't understand but should be thinking about. Musk didn't start Tesla, he bought it. Zuck didn't start Instagram, he bought it. Zuckerberg didn't start WhatsApp, he bought it, right? Apple are buying up companies all of the time, and they just swallow them up, right? Again, roll them up. And again, that the company that they buy for $1 million, for $5 million, for $10 million rolls into their $1 trillion play. And imagine what that does to the valuation of that smaller company immediately. It's like if you were going to buy a piece of real estate, if you've got a $1 million house for sale, and then for whatever reason, grandma's sick and she's just over it, you're the right place, right time, she sees you as a second son, what have you, and you could buy it for $700,000. The day that you sign that paperwork, you make $300,000, right? You make money when you buy, not when you sell, right? You make money when you buy, not when you sell. So if you were going to go and, do a second company, should you start it or should you acquire something? And I would absolutely positively lean you towards acquisition for the reasons that I've just spoken about. A little bit not for the faint of heart, because now you're acquiring a business. We'd have to assume you're going to be spending $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, Lord knows, right? Any amount. But so all of a sudden you'd need to be a little bit more, there's a higher level of risk to that. But the biggest risk is starting a company, because when do businesses fail? In the first 2 years. So if you were able to buy a 5-year-old company, you'd be bunny hopping that first 1, 2, 3 years where most of them fall over. So they've got past that. Like, they've got revenues, they've got clients, they've got recurring revenue, they got recurring clients. Now that's a business that you should be looking at. So anyways, second, should you start two businesses? The answer is there's some variables there. Hopefully I've outlined some of those in a decent way. I'd be very, 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 very cautious. There you go, folks. That's I'm going to leave you with that. I'm Sans Road Dog today. Again, a little bit of a thought or a prayer for our boy Road Dog towards his mom. So that's what I got for you guys. I hope that was good. I look forward to seeing you next week on Business Coaching Secrets. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.